Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing today? Good morning. Can you all hear me well? What a great group of students we have here today. Good morning to all of you. If you can just let me know that you can hear me well. Oh, thank you, Emily. You were a joy to teach. She had a tutoring session with me, and what a great student she is. You are going to be a fantastic realtor. Vienna has the test on the 14th. Everybody send good wishes to Vienna. You've got this. You're going to do wonderful. Minnesol took the test on Friday and passed. Congratulations to you. Everyone sing congratulations to Minnesol. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Deanna is testing in 2 days in Georgia. Deanna, you're going to do fantastic. That one, Ginger 7, has the test on the 14th. Oh my goodness. Terene, and I may be mispronouncing your name, let me know if I did, she's testing today at 2 o'clock. Oh my goodness. Everybody send all these people good wishes. You are going to do fantastic. Sony is testing soon. Alicia Day on the 14th. That's right. I want you all to put in the chat, I've got this. Everybody put in chat, I've got this. I want you to believe in yourself. Everybody believe in yourself. There is a lot of power in that positive self-talk. Remember that this test takes an organized, systematic approach. The questions are worded very difficult to understand. So we have to just basically outsmart the test. In all of my webinars, I always have my red suitcases. It's about compartmentalizing the information so that you have it in your brain where it's all in a category so you can recall the information by topic and remember it. Otherwise, you'll read a question and you'll be like, well, that looks familiar. I think I've heard that before, but I'm not sure. But if you are remembering things by topic, it will help you considerably. The brain is a wonderful thing. It can remember a lot of information. We just have to organize the information. A special welcome to those of you joining us for the first time today. Welcome to our webinars. You will find at Prep Agent we have a lot of different learning tools available. We recognize that everybody learns differently. Crystal Wiggins is taking the test on Friday. You've got this, Crystal Wiggins. You're going to do great. Deanna, you've got this. Oh, Shanerica took the test Saturday and passed. Congratulations to you. Everybody send her congratulations. Tanya's taking the test on October 25th. Good morning to Mary Ann in Arizona. Well, it has been a busy weekend for the Lott family. Some of you have been following our new puppy story. You know, we lost our standard poodle Grace back in April, and so we got the new puppy on Friday night, and she is the most precious thing. It is like having a newborn infant. If we are not in the room with her, she cries very loudly. I told her that I had to do a webinar, so hopefully she's going to be quiet during the webinar, but if you hear a puppy crying, that is Ella Grace, the cutest little red poodle you have ever seen. Oh my goodness. So anyway, let's go ahead and let's get started. So Beta's taking the test on the 14th, 9 on the 29th. Oh, you're going to all do fantastic. Holly, taking it on the 27th. Yes, Emily got to meet her this morning. Emily was the first tutoring student who got to meet Ella Grace. And Emily, I was so pleased she did not cry during your session. She just took a nap. So after she got to meet you, she just went sound asleep and took a nap. So we'll hope that she stays asleep during the webinar as well. Thank you, Diana. She is undoubtedly the cutest puppy ever. Let's talk a little bit about real versus personal property. Have your pen and paper ready. And let's make a vocabulary list to go under the property ownership. You know that we say vocabulary is everything, that it is so very important. And let's take that a step further, as we've been doing in my webinars, And let's categorize the vocabulary words by topic. That's right, Joanne Santos says, yeah, believe in yourself, visualize that, and that's right, and pass the test. That's right. That's right. So real versus personal property. If I turned that house upside down and I shook it, everything that fell out more than likely is personal property. It's all about how it's attached. The things that did not fall out, real property. So real versus personal property. Let's add that to our vocabulary list. I'm going to put real property and personal property. So I've got those added. Let's look at what the definition of real property is. So real property incorporates all things attached to the land and all rights inherent with that land. Real property usually involves things that are immovable, such as homes and buildings. And that is the definition that's in your Key Concepts to Pass Your Real Estate Exam ebook. If you like to read, that is one of our learning tools at Prep Agent that I highly recommend. It is so very well done. Now, some of you are very familiar with picking out if it's real or personal property, but we have a lot of new students on here today as well that have just joined us that are just starting out their learning. So we're going to go through the slides and talk about, is it real or is it personal? So I'm going to be watching your chat. Let's go with this first one. I've got a desk. It's just a piece of furniture, just a desk. Is that desk real or personal property? It's just a desk. It could also have been the sectional sofa in there, the chair, any kind of furniture that's just in your house. Is that real or personal? That's right, it's personal. Now, let me ask you this. If I took that desk and I bolted it to the floor, so it was permanently attached and I could not move it, at that point in time, would it be considered personal or real if I bolted it to the floor? That's right, it would be real property. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about a fixture, personal property that became real property. So we're going to be talking about that in a minute. You're exactly right. You are doing a fantastic job on this. The mirror, is that personal or real property? It's just hanging there on the wall, just a decorative mirror. Is that personal or real property? That's right, Vienna. It's the method of attachment. That's correct. That's personal property. Now remember that mirror that's hanging on the wall, that decorative mirror. In a moment, we're going to take a look at a mirror in a bathroom and compare it to this one. So on this one, it's personal property. It's just hanging there like on just a hook, like you would hang a mirror. So that's personal property. You could take that with you. You're exactly right. What about ceiling fans and light fixtures and things like that? Would those be classified as personal or real property? So a ceiling fan, a light fixture, chandelier, personal or real? Exactly. That's real property. Absolutely. Perfect. You all totally understand this. You're doing such a great job. So it's real property. So the ceiling fan, the light fixtures, real property. Now I have the fireplace circled as well. If you had gas logs, the fireplace insert, all the fireplace stays. That's all real property. And I have that circled because some of you may remember the story I told, and I just thought it was so interesting that a buyer's agent went to do her final walkthrough with her buyer on a property that her buyer was purchasing. You always want to do a final walkthrough to make sure everything is as it should be within probably 24 hours of closing or whatever your broker recommends to you. And they went in and the seller had taken out the insert to the fireplace. Can you even imagine? They had taken the insert of the fireplace. This is when you have to do your final walkthroughs to make sure everything is as it should be. So all of the things on that fireplace, they all are going to remain, the actual workings of the fireplace and all. Not the decorative things around them, not the mirror, not the candle. Those are personal properties. You can take those with you, but everything associated with the fireplace is going to stay. This next slide, the blinds are pulled up, but the things on the windows are going to stay as well. So you're going to leave those. Now, a little staging tip for you. Notice how those blinds are pulled up, how they're raised. It lets a lot of sunlight come in. It makes the room look larger. So if you're getting photographs made of your listing, you want to have the blinds raised, the draperies, if there are draperies, open. It will make the room look a whole lot bigger and put a lot more sunlight in there. Rachel Martinez passed her exam. Congratulations to you. That's wonderful. Congratulations. We know the furniture, that is personal property. You get to take that with you. Now, look at that alarm system. You're going to need to check with the alarm systems and see if they're leased or they're owned. Also, another thing you need to be watching for on that, if you were to get a listing, is going to be like a lot of the Ring doorbells, things like that. Remember, if it's hardwired, it's going to stay with the property, but some of those are not hardwired. So it could possibly be different. So there's so many little things you have to think about, so many details when determining if something is real property or personal property. There's that mirror in the bathroom. You saw a decorative mirror in the living room earlier, and you said that was personal property. But what about this mirror in the bathroom? We have to have a mirror over the sink. It's become very common for decorative mirrors to be used over the sink rather than what we used to see. Remember all the great big mirrors that were, I don't know if they glued them on or how they bolted them in, but they were there forever and ever. So now we have a mirror here over the sink in the bathroom, real or personal, and you all have real property. Great job. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Jennifer, just email me that question, Cynthia@prepagent.com. That's all right. You have to have a mirror over the sink. This has been a big problem lately. What we're seeing is sellers are taking their decorative mirror over the sink. And then the buyer moves in and they go to brush their teeth or brush their hair. There's no mirror. So even though it's attached in the same way that decorative mirror was, you are supposed to have a mirror over the sink. You have to have that. So that's why that one should stay. Thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate your kind words very much. The outdoor furniture, you can take that with you unless it's bolted. If you had some type of like bench that was bolted to the concrete or whatever, then it becomes real property. But if it's just a piece of furniture I could pick up and I could move it, or that umbrella, whatever it might be, I can take that with me. Now, the outdoor kitchens that are permanently attached, that's very popular to have outdoor kitchens. Those are going to stay. Yeah. Let me draw your attention back to the kitchen. On the other side of the refrigerator, let's talk about the microwave. That microwave is permanently attached back there. You can see it's built in. If the microwave is built in like that, is that personal or is that real property? Personal or real? What do you think on the microwave? It's built in, a built-in microwave. That's right, it's real. Exactly. Be careful on the questions on the exam. They can be very tricky. If I went to Walmart and I bought a webinar and I just brought it home with this little, did I just say webinar? I bought a webinar. So we've had very little sleep from the puppy. So I bought a microwave is what I meant to say. I bought a microwave at Walmart and I brought it home and I put it on the counter. Is that personal or real? I can pick it up. I can move it. Yes, did I say webinar? I bought a webinar at Walmart. Yes, that's right. I'm glad I caught that I said that. I would listen back to this and say, oh my goodness, what in the world did I just say? That's right. Personal. That's exactly right. Again, it goes back to that method of attachment. Yep, You're doing so well with this. The webinar is personal visa. That's right. It would be, right? Yes. Exactly. Oh my goodness. We had forgotten how a puppy stays up all night. Oh my goodness. Now let's talk about real versus personal property and some terms that you would have to know. How about the stove? Typically the stove is going to stay, Sarah. Yeah, in Texas where I am, the stove always stays, whether it's one that's built in or another kind. You might double check in your state just to see if they have any kind of different rule. The majority of the time it's going to stay. But again, that can get a little state specific on that one. Now, an appurtenance is a definition for you to know. Let's write that on our vocabulary sheet. Appurtenance. An appurtenance is interest that goes with the land. So everything that the land has, when you sell it, is going to go. An improvement, let's add that. Man's addition to the land, a house, landscaping, an in-ground swimming pool, a barn. So you had a piece of land and you did something to improve it. Sarah, hold that question for just a second. Is it real or a fixture? And we're going to talk about it here in just a second. An improvement, add that to your list. So we've got appurtenance and improvement to add to your vocabulary list here. That's right, Shannon. An appurtenance, it runs with the land, that's right. Now, here's where we're going to talk about the fixture, Sarah, so I think that will clarify any questions you might have on this. If it doesn't, be sure and let me know. But a fixture is personal property that became real property. So let's put that on our vocabulary list. In fact, let's put everything from this slide. Go ahead and write it down. A fixture, annexation, and severance. So a fixture is personal property that became real property. The process of that occurring is called annexation. So I went to Home Depot. I bought that chandelier. I brought it home. It's in a box. And that's personal property. Now I'm going to hang it on the ceiling in the dining room so it becomes real property. So the process of going from personal to real property, of making it a fixture, is going to be called annexation. I do not like the chandelier. It looks horrible. What was I thinking when I bought it? I am taking it back to Home Depot as fast as I can. So I take it off the ceiling, I put it back in the box. I went from real property back to personal property. That's called severance. Okay, Smith, you are 150% accurate. That bolted desk we talked about earlier would be a fixture. It was personal property. When I bolted it to the floor, it became real property. That's a fixture. Denise Green is taking her test. You are going to do fantastic. You've got this. Yeah, when I took the chandelier off the ceiling, it became personal property again. Yeah. So fixture, annexation, and severance. I like to bundle terms together. I can remember them better that way. So when I think of fixture, I automatically bundle annexation and severance. I think fixture, annexation, severance kind of go together. One helps me remember the other. I don't know if that will help you any. That's kind of how my brain style works, but we all learn differently. Some of you had mentioned Maria. Sometimes we need to know if it's a fixture or not a fixture. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to tell. So the test for a fixture can be remembered with the acronym MARIA. That stands for method, adaptability, relationship, intention, and agreement. So method is the method used to attach the item to the property might make it a fixture. So if something was put in with a hammer and nail, that desk, we could use that. We could say we bolted it to the floor. We used some kind of bolts, bolted it to the floor. Adaptability means that if the item becomes an integral part of the home, it cannot be removed. For example, a pool covering is a fixture because it goes with the pool. So even though the pool covering, I can pick it up and I can still move it, it goes with the pool. So that's the adaptability part. Relationship of the parties can dictate if something's a fixture. Might be considered a fixture if the relationship between parties is a buyer or seller as opposed to a landlord-tenant. The intention of the party when the item was attached can dictate if an item is now a fixture. I mean, I think that bathroom mirror kind of comes under intention. And the most important is the agreement between the parties. What have they agreed to? That supersedes all other rules. So we want to always remember the test for a fixture, the acronym MARIA. Personal property, we've talked about that. It's movable. It goes with the person. Remember, it can be hypothecated, alienated, and it can become real property, a fixture. We just talked about that. Also, you may see personal property called chattel or personalty. Sometimes they refer to personal property with those other terms as well. Sometimes I'll just mispronounce personalty. I'll call it personality. So then you can remember it's the same as personal property. On your exam, the most common would be personal property and chattel. You know, Joe has that one video. I think it's one of my favorites. I like his OREE, except I have the jingle in my mind all day. And then I love his chattel. It rhymes with cattle and it's movable. How could anyone ever forget from Joe's famous videos? He does such a great job making people understand and remember. So let's add to our vocabulary list. Let's go ahead and add chattel. We already have personal property on our list, so let's add chattel and personality. Every once in a while, somebody will come back and say, hey, I didn't know what personality meant. I saw that on the test. It's not nearly as common as personal property and chattel, though, but just know it just in case. Now, let's also add bill of sale. If personal property is going to be sold from the seller to the buyer, we're going to use the bill of sale. The buyer loves the seller's dining room table. They're like, that is the most beautiful dining room table I have ever seen. I will never find another dining room table that fits that dining room like this one. Mr. Seller, would you please sell that to me? The seller says, certainly. I don't have to move it. That helps me out. So the buyer is going to purchase the seller's dining room table. We're going to put that on the bill of sale. Emily, hypothecated just means to attach. So we would see the word hypothecated maybe in this situation. Sometimes you'll see hypothecated on the finance part as well, like on a mortgage of a lien. There's a lien, so that lien's being attached to the property. So you might see it under something like that as well. Jessica, you are going to do fantastic on your exam. Let's add trade fixture to our list. So a trade fixture is something that someone uses in their business. It could be a barber chair in a barber shop, a refrigerated case in a grocery store. The rule on a trade fixture, the tenant can take their trade fixture with them, but they must remove it before the lease expires. If they don't, the trade fixture becomes the property of the landlord through what we call a cession. Jennifer, I think I have that on one of the next slides. Yeah. Okay, so everyone, do you all have trade fixture added to your vocabulary list? An implement, an implement. Just to summarize all of that information on that slide, and you can go back and read that later, it's just a crop and it's personal property. So an implement is a crop and it's personal property. If you're joining us for the first time today, make sure that you know that for all our premium members at Prep Agent, you can go back. You just go to previous webinars under your webinar part of the dashboard and type in property ownership, and you can watch this webinar over and over again. You can also turn off the volume and just fast forward the YouTube, and you have all my PowerPoint slides that way, so you can take notes from that. All right, here comes some of the problem makers on the exam. I think the first part we went over is super easy for all of you. You all did such a great job. So I don't think you're going to have problems with real versus personal property or any of those definitions we went over, this is where I start to see in the tutoring sessions that a lot of the students get confused on these next slides. So I'm going to make these really easy for you. I think part of the reason that they are confusing to the students, they sound so legal. They're just kind of intimidating to begin with, but they're really not that hard. So we'll make these super easy for you. So the first one is ownership in severalty. So write that on your vocabulary list. That just means ownership by one. People miss this question on the exam because it could be one individual or one business entity, one LLC, one corporation. When we think of a business entity, we think of it being a lot of people and all, but they're saying it's just one business entity or one individual. Ownership by one. Ownership and severalty, there is only going to be one signature. One signature. Here are kind of the big problem makers on the exam. I'm watching your chat. Let me know if these have been a problem for you on the exam, because I see this probably in the top 5 as far as things the students have difficulty understanding. Now, understand that you just have to know what all this means. If you try to tell somebody how to take ownership of a property, you will be practicing law, and we're not allowed to do that. But you have to have the knowledge of what it means so you can communicate that to the exam, and also so you can understand when you start practicing real estate. Tenancy in common and joint tenancy. The first thing I want you to know is that they are ownership by 2 or more. Tenancy in common is without rights of survivorship. That means that the owners who are tenants in common, they can will their part to their heirs. They can will their part to their heirs. And it's that without part that's so confusing. So just when you get to the testing center, if they'll let you write that on your scratch paper, I would write without rights of survivorship means I can will it to my heirs. With rights of survivorship on joint tenancy, in that particular one, you cannot will it to your heirs that upon death of one of the owners, their part goes to the other owners. This without and with, it's one of those things that the more you think about it, the more confusing it becomes. It's like, okay, I know the difference in these. And the more you think about it, it's like, okay, now which one was which? So remember, tenancy in common is without rights of survivorship. You can will it to your heirs. Joint tenancy is with rights of survivorship. They call it the poor man's will because you don't need a will. Even if you had one for this part, then it wouldn't help you any, because upon death of the owners, their part is going to go to the other owners. Remember that joint tenancy has TTIP, time, title, interest, and possession. Time, title, interest, and possession. So picture this. We have a conference room and we have 4 people sitting around a conference table, and they are purchasing a property. There are going to be 4 joint tenants. They are all there at that conference table at the same time. They're all signing the same document. One signs it, hands it to the next one, the next one, the next one. They all have an equal interest, so they all own 25% because there were 4 of them, and they all have the right to possess the property. So that's TTIP. That's what you're going to have in joint tenancy. Now, go over back to tenancy in common. You can own unequal shares. Let's say we had 2 owners. One could own 25%, one could own 75%. So they could own different percentages. They could sign at a different time. The only thing of the 4 unities that tenancy in common has is possession. They also have the right to possess the property. All right, tenancy in common and joint tenancy. If you will remember it like this, I think it will help you considerably. Don't overcomplicate it. It's really this easy. They're going to give you a clue in the question. This person owns a property and he is going to will it to his daughter. what kind of ownership is that? Well, I know that's tenancy in common because I can't will anything in joint tenancy. Yes, Stephanie Fleetwood says, what is tenancy by the entirety? Only certain states have tenancy by the entirety, Stephanie. And for those states that have tenancy by the entirety, it is a subcategory under joint tenant. So on tenancy by the entirety, if it is a married couple and they own as joint tenants, that's called tenancy by the entirety. Yeah. Yeah, Teresa says, I heard someone mention joint tenancy. You can't pass the joint to your family. That's a good way to remember it, yes. Any little way you can remember it is very helpful. Yeah. Is everyone okay with this part? I think we just automatically overcomplicate it. Be looking for the clues in the question. They're there. The people who write the test are just really good at hiding those clues, so you really have to dissect that question apart so that you get the full meaning of it. Yeah, good. Okay. Let's make sure you added tenancy in common and joint tenancy to your list of words. Tenancy in common, joint tenancy. I'm making my list with you so that I don't talk too fast and I give you plenty of time to write your list down as well. Paul Cabrera says, what about community property? Paul, there are 9 states that adhere to community property rules. So that's a bit different topic than this. Yeah. I'm in Texas. We're a community property state. Timeshare. Let's add timeshare to your list of vocabulary words. That's interval ownership. People use this for their vacationing. It is a type of tenancy in common. You might have someone who has 1 week out of the year that they have access to that property. You may have someone else who has a month, 2 months, whatever it might be. So timeshare, make sure you have that written down on your vocabulary list. A co-op, let's put that on our list. It's also called a cooperative. You may see it either way on your test. This is mostly in New York City. In fact, I was doing some research and it said that 35% of the people who live in New York City live in a co-op. If you are in New York City, you are probably very familiar with co-ops, cooperatives, and the number may be even higher than that percentage that I saw. Now, the land and the building are owned by the corporation. It might look like a condominium building or an apartment building, something like that, but the land and the building are both owned by the corporation. The way that you get to live there is that you own shares of stock in the corporation. So that's how you get to live there. You own shares of stock in the corporation. And be careful with this question. It only creates a proprietary lease, so you do not have ownership. It's a proprietary lease. And we know that any kind of lease is considered a personal property interest. A personal property interest. So remember, a co-op, you get to live there by owning shares of stock in the corporation. It creates a proprietary lease, and that is a personal property interest, and that's in the unit and in the common areas as well. Yeah, Joanne Santos says, I'm in New York, and many people own or rent co-ops. Yeah, Joanne, I'm curious. The statistic was pretty reputable that I saw, but I hear so many people that are in New York City that live in these that I wondered if it might even be higher than the 35%. Yeah. I'm interested in seeing what your thought is since you're there in New York. Yeah. So Beta is asking about a timeshare. That was just interval ownership. So Beta, people usually use those for their vacationing. That's all it is. Just a timeshare is just interval ownership. It just means that you don't own it all year. You just own it for a certain amount of time. Annette passed her exam. Congratulations. Everybody send Annette congratulations. Catherine says she visited New York and loved it. I think I would too. That's one of the few places I have not been. And I think that would be the most incredible place to go. in a condominium ownership, Deanna, great question. That's ownership of what's within your walls. Remember, the cooperative, you don't own it at all. You're just leasing it. Oh, yeah. Joanne said that is much higher than 35%. Yes, send me numbers, Joanne. I would be very interested. I thought it sounded low as well. For practice, Terene. Tell me how to pronounce your name. I'm not sure I'm saying it correct. I think I pronounce it 2 different ways. So you let me know which is the correct way. For practice of real estate, that's my fair housing and my practice and disclosure webinars. I just taken the exam on Saturday. You are going to do great. Anania lives in New York City. Lucky you. That would be so fun. All the fine arts there, all the musicals, all the plays. Oh my goodness. Oh, Joanne says 75%. I thought my statistic was low. Thank you for confirming that, Joanne. I really appreciate that. 75%, she said, live in a co-op. So anyone taking the test in New York, they know what a co-op is. Everybody else, like I'm in Texas, as you know, and we would say, what is a co-op? We don't have any here. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Yeah. All right. So everybody has cooperative on here. And again, the difference in a condominium, you own what's within the walls. So that's actually an ownership. A co-op is a lease, personal property interest. I know, right? That's 75%. That's a large percentage, right? I'm guessing maybe land is scarce. So that's how they've made home ownership or made it places for people to be able to live. Yeah. For Fernando, yes, they're mowing a day early next door. Yeah, that's usually on Tuesdays. Yeah, Annette says that she started working with a company in New York City. It seems everyone's in a condo or a co-op. Yeah. Again, I think land is limited. The next part we're going to talk about are the other problem makers I see on the exam. I'm going to make these very easy for you as well. These are your freehold estates. I know one of you, I think it was Jennifer, mentioned this a moment ago. So let's go over these. So let's put freehold estate on your list. Freehold estate just means ownership. It can be for indefinite periods of time. You know, we all own things for different periods of time. I've told you I like to move, so my husband's always wishing we had ownership for longer periods of time because he hates to move. But I'm just in all these beautiful homes, and I'm just like, oh, let's move to this one. If you ever see like less than freehold or non-freehold, that means a lease, and that's always personal property interest. Teresa, that was fair housing and the practice and disclosure webinar. Simone's taking her test at 4:30 p.m. today. You've got this. You're going to do fantastic. And Cassandra is taking hers tomorrow morning. Best of luck to you. Yeah, Joanne says condos are more expensive to buy than co-ops. Yeah. All right, on our freehold estates, and we know that means ownership, the first freehold estate is called fee simple, or they may also call it fee simple absolute. You may see it either way. Those mean exactly the same thing. That is the best kind of ownership. It has the most bundle of rights. Let's write down bundle of rights as well. Bundle of rights, your right to live there, to enjoy the property, to sell it, to lease it, to will it to your heirs. All those rights you have to the property, your bundle of rights. In fee simple, also called fee simple absolute, you have the most bundle of rights, the best kind of ownership. The second one is fee simple defeasible. This could also be called determinable. Jennifer, there's the answer to your question right there. Determinable and conditions subsequent. That all means the same thing. If they could just find one word, right, that meant the definition of whatever they're asking, rather than have 3 different words that all mean the same thing, that makes it extra confusing for you. Oh, Maria, I am so sorry about your dad. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. That's hard. I lost my dad quite a few years ago as well. I know how that hurts. All right, fee simple, defeasible, determinable, or condition subsequent, that is ownership that comes with a condition. I gave a property to the church. I said, here's my condition. I want you to build an education building. Instead, they built a parking lot. They had to give me the property back because they did not meet my condition. The next one, the third, freehold estates. And you remember how I told you to bundle terms together? So when I think freehold estates, I automatically think of all three. Fee simple, defeasible, life estate. I've got them bundled together so I can remember them. Under life estate, there could be 5 terms that you get. Life estate, life tenant, life estate with reversion, remainder man, and life estate pure attribute. So a life estate is just ownership for the duration of somebody's life. That's all it is. I gave my mom a life estate to the property. My mom is the life tenant. So life estate's an interest in real property that lasts the length of somebody's life. It is a type of freehold estate because it is indefinite in duration. We talked about that a few minutes ago. People could own things for different periods of time. When the life tenant's life ends, title reverts to the original owner. That's life estate with reversion. So if it goes back to the original owner, that is life estate with reversion. The life tenant, again, that's my mom. I gave her a life estate to a property. My mom's the life tenant. She gets all the rights of ownership. The only thing she cannot do, she cannot will the property to her heirs. Life estate pure attribute, an interest in real property that lasts the length of someone's life who is not the life tenant. It's a type, again, a freehold estate because it's indefinite in duration. So pure attribute just means that it's based on the life of somebody who is not the original life tenant. When the measuring life ends, title goes back to the original owner. That was reversion. Or to a remainder man. Remember, remainder man means last man standing. Who ends up with the property? That's how you can remember the difference between reversion and remainder man. Reversion is going back to the original owner who gave that life estate. Remainder man is who ultimately ends up with it, the last man standing. So be careful on those. They can be a little bit confusing, but you can get those right if you just remember remainder man is last man standing. Pure attribute is the hardest on the test. Process of elimination. If you got a life estate question, I would write down all 5 of these terms on your scratch paper. The other 4 are easy. Life estate, life tenant, remainder man, life estate, remainder man and life estate with reversion. But life estate pure attribute can be a little more complex. If that's all that you have left after you have eliminated the other 4, you can rest assured that that's probably going to be your answer. Sometimes process of elimination is a fantastic way to go about answering some, not all, of these questions. So that's your life estate. All right, let me just make sure you have everything on your vocabulary list. I've got real property, personal property, appurtenance, improvement, fixture, annexation, severance, chattel, personalty, bill of sale, trade fixture, implement, ownership and severalty, tenancy in common, joint tenancy, timeshare, co-op, also called a cooperative, and Joanne, thank you for that extra information you sent us on that. Freehold estate, fee simple, also known as fee simple absolute, bundle of rights, fee simple defeasible, also called determinable, and conditions subsequent, and under life estate, life tenant, life estate with reversion, remainder man, and life estate pure attribute. Oh, Joanne, a life estate's just ownership for the duration of someone's life. If I gave my mom a life estate to the property, my mom's title is life tenant. That's the difference. If Stu or I can help you through a tutoring session, a lot of students find these to be very, very helpful. you can definitely sign up at prepagent.com. We've been booking out a couple of weeks in advance, so I would go ahead and get on our schedule. People are trying to get their license passed before the end of the year. So we have been busy, 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 and always kind of such an honor to get to teach you, to get to help you. If you enjoyed this webinar, I always appreciate a thumbs up. So that always means a whole lot to me. I hope you learned today, and always such an honor to get to teach all of you. Have a fantastic day. Bye, everyone.